Welcome to another segment of Behind the Lens. So, let me sort of say to you what Behind the Lens is. My name is Jonathan J. Kaufman, president of J. Kaufman Consulting, and I do quite a lot of writing on Substack as well as LinkedIn. My Substack column is called Through a Broader Lens Insights, and the focus has always been around the $60 trillion disability and longevity economy. And that economy is continuing to grow across all business sectors. And the column is really designed for venture capital firms, private equity, family offices, and business leaders. While on my LinkedIn column, which is called Through a Broader Lens, I write more broadly on the intersection of business, disability, longevity, leadership, innovation, mental health, and culture. And then there is my own life. And as someone born with cerebral palsy, the lived experience of disability is really important to me. But more importantly than that, it's really colored my professional life as a consultant, psychotherapist, executive coach, and speaker. And one of the key things that I continue to look at is this evolving world. And I wanted to bring that to the table in these segments in Behind the Lens and really looking at what makes this all tick, because there's lots going on and it's important to talk about every week. I talk about it in sort of the written form, and I also talk about it at least from a recording standpoint with the sort of companion podcast that I have with Through a Broader Lens Insights, just to sort of give a bite-sized version of it. But I do think it's important to talk about the daily experience, because I come at it from so many different angles, whether it's the lived experience, whether it's my professional life. The disability and aging world is changing, and it's redefining how we live. Somebody always taught me that when you meet one person with a disability, you meet one person. But also, what I have found that is even more profound, and probably even more so today with the sort of changing demographic, is that disability and aging sort of go hand in hand. And when people age, disability becomes part of their everyday lives. Whether they sort of agree to it or not, it is becoming part of their daily life. Doesn't mean life has to stop. It just means, how do we adapt? How do we design in new ways and thinking about it differently? That's the critical thing. And that's what I want to do here weekly, is really talk about these issues and begin to think about, well, how do we engage with this? And in my professional life, that's what I do. I am in the helping profession. And my job, whether it's with individuals or organizations or teams or otherwise, is to help people, guide them through that, find strategic advantages, and also quality of life. So as we go forward, those things are critically important. And Behind the Lens will hopefully provide a platform to do that. And I want to be able to engage people who are interested in this topic and think about ideas, questions, and areas that we can really look at in new and innovative ways. And I want to bring to you my experience, both personally and professionally, of what I'm seeing. And one of the things I want to talk about today is based on a Japanese word called kaizen. And kaizen is the idea of incremental improvement. We in sort of Western society, and particularly in the United States, is that everything has to be done fast, has to be done quick. And whether it's making a buck or finishing things, and particularly in this sort of age of technology and the age of AI, where everything has become so much more efficient, that we think everything has to be done quickly, or it has to be completed quickly in some capacity. And one of the things that we think about when we think about change is that it oftentimes doesn't come fast. It doesn't come quickly. It comes in the form of sort of incrementally. And having lived with the disability and having to basically find ways to adapt to a world that is not made for me and for millions of other people with disabilities, the same thing, it's we have to find and understand that incremental change is our friend. And we have to think about it in that way. And it changes our mindset. It reframes how we look at things, how we're able to engage with challenge. Because if we're always asking for things up front or quickly, then we never really understand the value of what it is. And it's important to understand that value. So if we lean into this idea of what the Japanese call kaizen, it allows us to pause. It allows us to think through things. It allows us to evaluate and say, what changes have been made and how do we do it? That's the critical piece. It's so important, I think, both in life and in business, because oftentimes we have deadlines, true, but what is important in terms of seeing positive change and positive momentum can oftentimes be almost like an elixir. It can be a way to almost make somebody feel not just good, but engage and give them the confidence that they need to sort of continue to move forward. So as we have these moments, we need to be able to say, what is the value of incremental change? Where are we going? How do we see it? That, I think, is going to be something that we all need. And where that sort of takes us at times is understanding what I call power skills. Many people call it soft skills, but I think in the age of AI, we need to double down on power skills. And that is empathy, that is critical thinking, that is areas that sometimes we don't really see because they're sort of outside of the margins. But we have to be able to engage in how we are able to socially interact with one another and see the value of certain skill sets which have been marginalized in a way that needs to sort of come back into the fray. And we'll talk about that, I'm sure, over the weeks and months ahead. But it is something to think about. And as we sort of question ourselves, it questions institutions. And it questions how we think about this. Because I know from my clients that I see, there's a lot of existential crises, whether it's a chief marketing officer, whether it's a hedge fund manager, whether it's an executive at a major government agency. They're all thinking about, how do we look at change? How do we begin to think about change in different ways? And ultimately, we have to look at it in a way that we can digest it. And that incremental change is fundamental. And so I want everyone to sort of lean in, if they can, to understand that incremental change is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. And it just needs a greater understanding in terms of that shift of how we look at things, rather than saying, all right, we have to go so quickly. I sort of use the analogy of being on the Autobahn, and the Autobahn in Germany, which is the highway in Germany, and there is no speed limit. And sometimes we need to find exit ramps. So what are those exit ramps? If we're going too quickly, sometimes we need to slow down. Or what's the pace car at NASCAR, and thinking of yourself as a pace car rather than an actual high performance automobile. Those are the things we think about. So I will see you next time. And again, my name is Jonathan Kaufman, president of J. Kaufman Consulting. And I look forward to talking again soon.